evening, New Britain family and friends, and welcome to our community discussion. Today we have a great panel of our Latino, Latinx, Hispanic communities, our partners from CCSU. We have some administrators, we have teachers, we have students, as well as parents, and our superintendent here on the line today. Our commitment to diversity, equity, and inclusion is really important to understanding what our families need and what our children need to be extremely, extremely successful in our community. So today is just about a conversation about some strategies that can help our Hispanic and Latino, Latinx, and Latina populations. I encourage the panels to speak their truth, but most importantly, to offer solutions for healing as we move forward with doing what is best for all of our children. Our moderator for this evening, I'm really, really excited to have Alicia Hernandez Strong, and I'll read a little bit of her bio, and then I will ask our superintendent if she would also like to make introductions. So, Alicia Hernandez Strong is an Afro Puerto Rican activist and community organizer who was raised in New Britain. She attended De Loreto, Hales, and graduated from New Britain High School in 2014. She received her bachelor's degree in 2018 from Wesleyan University and graduated from Yale this past May with her master's degree. In 2020, she co-founded the New Britain Racial Justice Coalition to tackle the economic and racial inequities in the city. Most recently, she has accepted an offer to work in New Britain public school systems as a literacy tutor. So we definitely have a treat this evening with our moderator aligned to our work and her passion. And so I look forward just to the conversation and Mrs. Strong moderating. So before we get into the moderation, I'm going to ask our superintendent to greet us.
Good evening, parents, families, community members, and thank you to all the panelists here. Just very briefly, Alicia, we're thrilled to have you. I think we want to always be proud of our graduates and our alumni, and we're certainly thrilled when they want to come back and continue with the work alongside us, right? We grow and evolve, but having new people, new ideas, fresh ideas is always wonderful. It's an evolution, our work with diversity, equity, and inclusion. And the more people at the table, the better we are, the better we'll be. So thank you.
All right, awesome. I think I'll take it over for there. Thank you so much for the introduction. And I think we can jump right into the discussion question today. So I'll read off the discussion question, and then I'll just give each panelist a chance, a couple of minutes to answer. And at the end, we'll have an opportunity to answer questions from the audience. So if folks watching on live have any questions, that will be at the end portion of the event. So the question that we're exploring today is, what strategies do educators and leaders need to implement and successfully engage Latino and Hispanic families? Are there any panelists that want to go first, or should I just pick somebody? Maybe Awilda, do you want to start us off?
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes, please introduce yourself and then go ahead and answer the question.
Okay, I just want to make sure that you can all hear. First of all, it's Buenas Noches. Good evening to everyone. I want to share that I am a proud New Britain resident. I'm also went through the public school systems. I am a mother of a New Britain high school graduate. And as a student, parent, and resident, I'm going to be able to relate along with my professional expertise and best practices that are going to help us understand the importance of engaging our Latino or Hispanic Latino parents and families into the school system. And it's important that you understand that this is what I do. I advocate for first generation low income students. And that has been my passion and my dedication throughout my 35 years here at Central Connecticut State University. I just wanted to start sharing the importance of how do we, when we talk about engaging families, we need to understand that for many parents, they define that differently depending on which country you come from. Okay, and it's an American content of it's engaging families. When we're in other countries coming in, it's more that when we talk about education, it it it's defined as education. You're highly respected. You're a high achiever. And so this is where when parents when I used to go into the schools, I felt that I had to have some knowledge and some understanding as to what am I engaging into. So that's important. We need to understand that when we're involving parents, that we understand that their concept of education may be defined differently for everyone. And also, when we talk about, especially for older Latino generations, the ones that are raised with their abuelitos or their tios or their or generation, the baby boomers, parental involvement consists of making sure that our basic needs are met. Okay, that we have the food, the transportation, the health, and we have to pay bills. And many times, that's very important for educators in the school systems to understand. And I know you do understand that. But I put that up because these are the challenges that I also face when I'm trying to engage parents here in higher education, here at the university, that we need to talk about what are your resources in your community so that we can try to help you meet those needs. And also, I want to say something in Spanish, and that is that las familias son la primera institución que ejerce y influye en el niño, ya que transmite valores, costumbres y creencias por medio de la convivencia diaria. La educación comienza en la casa. Let me translate that. The families are the primary institutions that influence their child from birth. Okay, and they transmit the values and the customs and the beliefs that they have and the way they live in their everyday life, so that could be brought into the schools or into the communities. But it starts in las familias. And if we can begin engaging families in that social network when we're having a meal, that's where engagement starts. So then we can translate some of those good values and skills that we all have in ourselves to bring it into the school systems. And I want to leave it there because it's important that we acknowledge that engaging families and students in the schools are critical, because they're the ones that have to make the decisions for their sons and daughters. Students, you also have the right to implement and enhance your leadership skills through high impact practices in order to get all your opportunities in your schools and in your community so that you can become a long life learner. And I want to leave it there, and so I can allow the other panelists to share maybe something different or enhances to what I shared with you all.
Thank you so much, Awilda. That was great. That was a great way to start us off.
Mhm.
So for those of you who might just be joining us today, we are talking about strategies to engage Latinx and Hispanic families. So the next panelist we'll have is Joyce Rodriguez. Joyce, just start by introducing yourself and then go ahead and answer the question.
All right. Hi, everyone. I'm Joyce Rodriguez. I am the Latinos in Action teacher in New Britain High School. So I've been running the program. It's the second year running it. It's a project that I took on exactly because of what we're talking about when we're bringing to the table: diversity, equity, inclusion. I am not from New Britain. I was born and raised in Miami, Florida. Cubana y nicaragüense. For people cuando hablo español, la gente empiezan a tratar de averiguar de dónde soy. And they're like, are you Puerto Rican? And I'm like, I'm an adopted Puerto Rican to my Puerto Rican families out there. So I picked up on the Puerto Rican accent, but I'm from Miami, Florida, born and raised there. So I moved up here and I I kind of fell in love with being able to keep up this project with Latinos in Acción because I saw that there was a big need for it at the high school. Kids are yearning to have programs that implement and push them further into these careers that they sometimes they think they have, they feel they don't have the potential for it, but it's like, hey, let me show you why. So when it comes to engaging families, the Latinos in Action program really hones in on stuff like that because they really, part of LIA is literally Familia, Latinos in Action. The LIA is always the acronym, the part of it that they support it. And it's really interesting because I think about it from like not just a daughter perspective, hija de una familia que emigraron aquí, right? I'm first generation born here, first generation college. So I'm sorry, it's super laggy, the audio. So I understand some of the adversities that really come with finishing those 4 years of your bachelor's, right? Getting through the door, hustling through it, and then fighting to get your career, your resume, build it, right? And so when it comes to really engaging families, it really does transfer because the Latino culture, we really clutch to our roots, and that's what our families really like, remember, and they bring in and they pass on, and that's what we are. And I think that is the awareness that Awilda brought up earlier, right? Understanding where families come from, understanding what education means to them, what they want to see for their kid, what are their dreams for it, what do they expect, right? I have conversations with parents about senior night and senior activities, and they're like, oh, en Puerto Rico, no sé, es un evento bien grande, and and they tell us what they do, and I'm like, oh, okay, that's super cool. And they're like, that's the stuff that we want to see, and it's out there. I think it's really building that network and that pathway for parents and students to be able to say, this is what we want to see. All right, cool, let's work on it. So that's why I really believe in Latinos in Action, because it's starting to bridge that, right? What do the students want to see? What do the parents want to see? What kind of incentives? I ask the kids, at the high school level, parent night, teacher night, it's hard because kids are working, they gotta do, there's more responsibilities. So how, what do we do as a Latino culture to say, hey, vengan, how do we help out? So just really, it really is bringing awareness to, hey, these are how Latin people, this is what we want to see, this is what our community, this is how we click, these are the things when you make phone calls, right? We'll make phone calls for parent conference night. Spanish, Espanol, Spanish. A lot of it. This is a district that I know works hard to get teachers. Hey, for my New Britain staff, you are working hard to get Spanish speakers. I know it. And that really makes a difference when I meet new staff and I'm like, yeah, okay, great. Nos ayudamos, right? We work together. So I really think it's about networking and bringing those teams of people that are working for the same causes and the same, those same goals of bringing our families and bringing the diversity and really just showing what we're really capable of as New Britain, right? New community and the New Britain High School. So those are my 2 cents.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Joyce, for sharing all of your amazing work. I want to keep it moving for the sake of time, so I'll pass it on to Travis Santiago.
Hello. Can you all hear me? Mm-hmm. Okay, perfect. My name is Travis Santiago. I am a STEAM teacher in New Britain, formerly in a classroom at Holmes and at North End Elementary School. And I'm so happy to be here today. I have a Puerto Rican father and a French mother. So I was raised in Wallingford, fell in love with New Britain, was a CCSU graduate for my bachelor's and master's, and fell in love with working with the children of New Britain. One thing that really resonated with me as we've been talking so far is that engagement with the families. But I think one thing that as teachers and as a community, we need to also think about what does engagement look like to us and what does it look like to parents. Having that communication open with the parents of what do you deem as engagement? What do you want to see? And I know my fellow panelists had mentioned it before about asking them and seeing what they see from different countries and what is their culture like, of what does that look like for engagement for them. And one big thing that I really want us to really think about is that fidelity that we do it with. We want to be able to have that engagement, but we want to continue it and make it just a normal thing in our community. A lot of times we want to try something new and it works out great, but I want to make sure that it continues on and continues to grow. Having that first step for a lot of teachers and educators that might not be comfortable with it, that's that first barrier that we want to get over. And making sure that we are reaching out, that we are engaging, and making sure that it's meaningful. We don't want to have these engagement nights that aren't meaningful to parents, that aren't meaningful to kids. That's really where we're touching on. And I hear this common theme of family coming from everyone tonight. And I love that. I want to make sure that we are bridging that gap between families and schools, that we really can make an impact in our community.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Travis. Next, we will pass it on to Gina Ayala.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you for this opportunity. Alicia, representing 2014. I work with Tyler Ferguson in the Student Assistance Center at the high school. So she's really happy. She's watching right now, I'm sure. I'm Gina Ayala, school counselor, New Britain High School, running the Student Assistance Center for Peace and Justice this year. It's a brand new thing. We started last year, but last year being the pandemic year, this is really the first year that we're in full force. I have 4 amazing BSAs, behavior support assistants, who have been working with each cohort. So grade 9, 10, 11, and 12, cohorts 25, 24, 23, and 22. We're mostly around conflict transformation. We're there to help students help resolve conflict. As you all know, it's no secret. The reality is we've had a tough start, significant conflict on a daily, some more serious than others, but we at the center, and we call it the SAC for short, we at the center are trying to be more about listening, right, and less about this. But sometimes we even get caught assuming that we think we know what's best for students. And I think when we talk about Latinos in this country and Latinos in New Britain, which are majority, right, and majority at the high school as well, sometimes we also get caught, the staff, doing more of this than doing this. And assuming we know what's best. We who have been around for a minute, kind of also assume based on our experience, we know what they need. We know what we got to do. Different students, different years, same students, and that's not true. I think we got to challenge ourselves every day, to think a little differently, to think a little more creatively, to think crazy outside the box. There is no box, right? We got to get rid of that box and think. What do our parents specifically need? And when I say our, we not only mean parents that are listening right now that are Latino, and in my case, New Britain High School parents, I think our specifically meaning, I know Jose, and I know Maria, and I know Emily, and do I know their parents though? And do I know their story? And if the answer is no, then that's what I got to do to help Jose, Maria, and Emily. So at the center, I'm really proud of our BSAs because we're working on that. We're working on the relationships. We're working on getting to know our students as best we can. Because whether it's working with them after a conflict happens and we do a mediation, or it's working with them before a conflict happens and we try to resolve things peacefully so that a conflict doesn't happen, especially a verbal or physical, we got to get to know them either way. And sometimes we get to know them after something happens, and sometimes we get to know them before. I think what is missing in the center, and this is on me as the coordinator to work on, is the parent engagement piece. So we've tried many things in the past, right? Our superintendent knows, and those of you who are here, who are staff in the school district know. We've tried different things, and I think when we do things inside the building, we're missing a lot of parents, right? Because of their reality outside of the building. When we try to do things outside of the building, we run into some other challenges, which is how many parents can we get to attend something that we believe to be the right time, the right place. So we have work to do. I'm from Puerto Rican parents. I grew up 8 years of my life there, and then the rest right through high school in New Britain. Went to UConn, and then moved around all over the place. I feel a connection still to New Britain, and I'm very grateful for the respect that I feel from students and staff and parents. And I must admit that this year, even though I'm Gina Ayala and they know me, there's some challenges that the pandemic has created, some realities that students are bringing into the school, and thus the conflict. So I can't just use the "Yo, I'm Gino, I'm cool" card with students anymore. They're going through some stuff that's bigger than me, bigger than us. So we need to address that as well. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you so much. So next we will move on to Itati Serrano. Go ahead and introduce yourself and then go ahead and tell us your answer.
Good evening and buenas noches, familia. Mi nombre es Itati Serrano. I'm president of the Latinos in Action at the high school. I'm a senior. And I just want to emphasize what Ms. Rodriguez was saying on Latinos in Action. We are a class in the high school who's trying to promote community involvement from Latinos, Hispanics. And what she does is truly amazing. And I definitely feel like we need more of those resources in the high school. The high school is really, really big. And I feel like there's so many students and it's hard to be able to get to every single student. There are just so many teachers and there aren't so many teachers, but there's just so many students. So partially, I feel like that we need more help from parents. And I know it's really difficult from parents. My parents are from Ecuador and they don't know English. So it's hard for them to be able to help me on my homework or anything like that. So are my younger siblings. I know it's hard. I know parents work and they have really late night shifts. So part of that is having that devotion, spending at least 5-10 minutes with your child and making sure how their studies are going, if they're doing good with their grades, trying to care. Most of all, just the students, we need that support from our parents, and teachers just they do amazing, but we also need our parents. So we need more involvement from them, and I think that's going to make the biggest impact in our Latino community. A lot of students, they do things on their own. Coming from myself, my sister's in college, so I barely see her. So I do a lot of things on my own, but I know if parents were more involved in our school, then it would be so much better. And I think, as a general community, I think we need to have a better understanding of the Latino community. We're different from other communities. We work differently. Sometimes we're underprivileged. We don't know the language that we mainly speak here, which is English. There are immigrant students who come here not knowing a single word of English. So we do need to understand and be more, understanding of the circumstances that we go under. There's students at the high school who don't even understand, what a teacher is saying. They're translating everything through Google Translator. So we have to understand and be able to help out any person, any student in need. We're just like a community, but we just need to really understand how everyone functions. So I would say an answer or a help would be to just better have more resources for all the students in need, and from parents just to be more involved in our education. A tiny little thing asking, hey, how's it going in schools? Or hey, I'm going to go to your parent-teacher conferences tonight. Let me go meet your teachers. That would make the biggest impact. So there's a lot of help in the high school and every single school, but we still need that parent involvement. Thank you.
Thank you so much for giving that student perspective. Moving on, and again, for those who might just be joining us on Facebook Live, we are talking about ways to engage Hispanic and Latinx families. The next person on the panel we'll bring up is Orlando Ruiz.
Hola, buenas tardes, buenas noches. Mi nombre es Orlando Ruiz y soy director asistente de Lincoln School. Hello, everyone. Good evening. Thank you. I'm so humbled. Sorry, let me introduce myself in English. My name is Orlando Ruiz. I'm the proud assistant principal at Lincoln Elementary School here in New Britain. Thank you for, I'm very humbled to be part of this panel tonight. And I do want to talk about, that strategies that our schools need to implement to engage and empower our Latino families. First, I'm going to give a shout out to all our New Britain families who are so strong. They're hardworking, group of people that come from so many different backgrounds and diverse countries. So thank you for all that you do to hold down. Unfortunately, there's a lot of work to do. We have a lot of work to do to ensure that Latino families, Latino parents are involved in school decision-making in all of our schools. And as we make those decisions, we have to make sure you're using the lens of diversity, equity, and inclusion. But before we talk about education, we really got to talk about all the other obstacles that affect engagement that do not have to do with education, especially now more than ever during this pandemic. For one, economic security is a huge issue in our community. We worry about that next paycheck. When it's going to come in. Job loss has been huge and catastrophic for Latino communities. I think about our immigrant parents whose jobs were unstable to start with, and who have lost their jobs during this pandemic. And also our Hispanic Latino business owners. The data shows that 1 out of every 3 Hispanic businesses have closed during this pandemic. We also, another area of concern that has nothing to do with education right now that really affects our Latino parents is racial justice at this time. I know as a Latino parent, and my wife as well, we speak to our children about the Black Lives Matter movement, how this is a moment for us to talk with our children about it, because we too have experienced violence that has been similar. Black Lives Matter is a collective struggle, and we Latinos relate to the pain and the frustration of the BLM movement. So those two things, racial justice, economic security, those are things we have to address as well. And now we move on to education, right? The question you asked me is, how do we help our parents become more engaged? First and foremost, we definitely have to empower them when we engage them. As an assistant principal, one of my professional responsibilities is to build the teacher's capacity in the area of instruction, right? How to become a better teacher. Well, as educators, we all have that responsibility now to build the capacity of our parents and our students. We need to begin to show parents that they're part of the team, that they have a seat at the table, and that they can make decisions about their child's education. That is why all schools need to have parent events so we can give you parents, Latino parents, a voice at the table in your school community. I have a message for our Latino families that despite the obstacles, we can do it. Despite my family's obstacles, we did it. I had a lot of issues growing up. Papi and Mami didn't graduate high school, limited English. They worked hard at their jobs. It wasn't easy for mi familia. We lived in the hood everywhere we went in Waterbury, and we moved from apartment to apartment. But I'm here today. And thank you because of God, I'm here today, in a great family system. And I only had, unfortunately, my mom, who was really involved. My father, unfortunately, suffered from drug abuse, mental health issues. But even though we have these obstacles in the home and nationwide, we can do it. That's why I'm here today, just to say on this panel, I'm going to use my privilege of being a Latino male, being an elementary school assistant principal, and telling you that we need your voice at the table, Latino families. I'm empowering you tonight, mi gente. Please, let's use our voices to engage in your child's education and in our school communities. Necesitamos los voces de los padres latinos, por favor. Thank you. We can only do this together as a team, and I thank you guys for allowing me those minutes of time.
Thank you so much, Orlando. A very, very great message. And I think really expanding on the outside factors, because these kids don't live in a bubble in the school, right? They have a lot of outside things going on in life and going on in the country that really impact how they're experiencing school. So anyway, let's move on. I'm going to pass it to Limcia Muniz. Go ahead and introduce yourself, and then you can answer the question.
Okay. Hello, my name is Limcia Muniz. I am a senior at New Britain High School. I'm also vice president of the Professional Committee in Latinos in Action. And first and foremost, I'd like to say thank you to every single person who is both on the live and in here speaking, just because I think it's very, very important to include such diverse groups into our community, because I often feel that as a Latina, I feel like sometimes we are placed in the shadows, and that's just the reality of life. And I just think it's really important that we bring this altruism to the community itself and show that we all do matter and we do have a say in how we should showcase ourselves in our life. And I like to bring up something Mr. Ayala said actually, where he mentioned that it's very important to both listen.
Sorry, we have some connectivity issues. Let me see if we can get her back. In the meantime, maybe we'll pass it on to Evie and then we'll go from there.
Hello, my name is Evelyn Lopez, and I'm on here to represent as a parent myself. But just to give you some more information about myself, I've always lived in New Britain all my life. I graduated from New Britain High School myself. I've also gone and gotten my associate's degree, and I'm working at the present time. I'm working on my bachelor's degree. I also work for the school system for already 21 years. And I also have two boys in our system. One of them goes to De Loretto, the other one goes to New Britain High School, which is about to graduate. Just when I was posed this question today and asked to join this today, I was a little bit shy trying to figure out what it was that I wanted to say. But as most of the panel has done, I have agreed everything that you have said. I even took my little notes just so I know. But basically, the question that came, the message that came into my mind is our schools need to reflect our communities. We need to start from the top to the bottom. I feel like, as a parent, I was blessed with the fact that I understood and I knew a little bit more. By the time my kids were born, I was already in the system, so I understood a little bit more. And what I have done was even when parents come to me or they talk to me or they see me out in stores and stuff and they recognize who I am, they start talking to me. And I encourage them, okay, you need to ask questions, you need to call. I'm the first one to give out information and just to let them know, here's the phone number for the board, here's the phone number for this and so forth. As a parent myself, I've learned that when you're more involved in your schools, it'll help out your child. But I also do understand, as a person that works for the school district and stuff, I do understand that sometimes parents don't understand how to. They don't understand where to go. They don't understand, so they feel like they're left out. So sometimes they feel like they cannot communicate, but they don't know where to start. So if we ourselves, like this panel is doing today, is so great, because if people see us and if they see us that we're talking and they recognize us, they're like, oh, I want to go speak with them. They'll realize that we're just like themselves. Like, we have our ups and downs, and we're doing what we need to do. And in order to understand, we have to understand where the parents are coming from as well. They need to feel like the environment in the schools are more like them, like like the environment in schools, they understand. Basically, what I'm trying to say is, as a parent, I'm speaking mostly as a parent. As a parent, if our kids are in our schools from any type of race, Latin and so forth and everything, and our kids see other persons in our schools like yourself, like Miss Sanders, like everyone that's on this panel, they see them in the schools, they're like, okay, they understand me, they know where I'm coming from, they understand what I'm doing, and they'll understand, they'll go to them, they'll talk to them and so forth. And I have parents that do the same thing. So I do agree. I feel like it starts with the environment in the school, how if that whoever is working in the school, that they bring something. What I'm trying to say is, like, they need to form that connection. See, like my child, I have two boys. I have one that's 9 years old and one that's 17. When my child goes to school, and even though I'm there, but it doesn't matter, even though he pretends like I'm not most of the time, but when he's there, he knows that if he's having a bad day, his teacher understands him and his teachers. So that's why I always encourage parents to always speak with their teachers. I always encourage parents to talk with the office. And I always say, like, if the schools have that good, safe environment where a parent could come and ask a question without feeling, oh, I don't know what to say. I don't know if my English, if my Spanish. That if the schools represent the fact of, oh, we have somebody that can speak with you, it's gonna be okay, and they're able to talk. Like my little boy, for example, he had a bad day today, but he was able to connect with someone at the school that he didn't need me. And as a parent, that feels good that the school is able to have different, just different, all the diversity that the school has in the cultures, and it has to reflect all of that. And as a parent, I'm very proud of that. I feel, and this is the same thing. And now, speaking as a person that works for there for 21 years, I've been working for the school system. I feel myself, when I speak with parents, I try to open up that door and say, okay, I'm here for you. Come and talk to me. Or if I don't have an answer, you know what? I know somebody that in the board that could speak with you. And I personally will make that phone call and be like, okay, I have this, or I'll give them information. So I'm so proud of the fact of Itati was in my school before. I'm so proud of I have Mrs. Sanders. So it's like Mrs. Sanders was my son's principal at one time. And and that meant a lot. Even using like Mrs. Sanders as an example, anytime as a parent when I would come to her, she was there. So this is the type of environment that we need to have for our schools. I feel like if our schools need to reflect our communities. They need to and obviously we all have our teachers and everybody have their own things, but if our schools have that community in them and invite and ask, or maybe we show, or maybe we ask the parents, if you're listening, if you have any questions regarding anything that you would like to learn, ask us, and ask the schools. I've done that myself. I've done that when I don't have questions or anything. I've done what I ask, and in all these panels, all these people on these panels, as well as your principals, your assistant principals, and everybody, including your teachers, are willing to help. And I know as a parent of 2 boys, been living here all my life and graduated as well, they have encouraged me to move on forward. So I just say that it's based on our communities. If we could do that in our schools, to have that openness, to have that diversity, and to understand our different cultures, I think parents will feel more comfortable to come and talk to us. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Evelyn. And last but not least, we're going to bring Limcia back on so that she can finish her remarks. And then after that, we'll open it up to folks watching for any questions that you might have for the panelists. Go ahead. You have to unmute. Still muted. Yeah, I think we're having some connectivity issues. Let's see. Yeah, it says that you're muted. Okay, I think we lost her. All right, so perhaps we will just move on to the Q&A section to see if anyone has questions. And then if we can get her back on, we'll put her up. So if folks watching have any questions, feel free to submit them. You can submit them to a specific panelist, or you can just submit a general question and any panelist who feels compelled can answer. I don't know where the questions are coming in. Dr. Sanders.
We have more comments than questions. So I don't know if our panelists want to expand on some of their thoughts.
Yes, Dr. Sanders, I'd like to emphasize on a couple of important items as we continue to advocate for our Latino students and parents, and that is that many times we don't highlight the successes of our Latino students and Hispanic parents in the school system. Okay, los logros, todo lo que hemos logrado, todo el trabajo que los estudiantes hacen. Necesitamos poderle reconocer en las escuelas lo que la comunidad latina en New Britain está haciendo. Eso es muy importante. Because I noticed that in the chat, they mentioned that we may have a good number of Latinos that would like to hear some Spanish spoken. And I want to make sure that my points are being sent across. Another item of importance is that, when we do orientations at the schools, cuando hacemos las orientaciones en las escuelas, debemos de hacer una orientación bilingüe para los padres y en el distrito escolar. Le damos la bienvenida a todos los padres en un auditorium, pero el 66.8 del porcentaje de nuestra comunidad latina que debe de estar ahí y está presente, no hay una bienvenida en español. Okay, so let me translate that. At the orientations, I sat in the auditorium representing a program that I ran, such as CONCAP many years ago, and I make sure that some of those orientations, we carried them and they were bilingual, so that our 66.8% of our Latino parents in our community know what's going on. What are their rights? What are their responsibilities in the schools? Very important. And because we have wonderful Latino administrators at the schools, they can serve as translators or bring the community, bring CCSU together so that we can run these Spanish orientations. We can run them, okay? And have the parents be part of that. I find that as very important. And again, let's not forget to identify positive families in our communities who are critical in connecting other families, so that we talk about peer-to-peer, students with students. Let's talk about parent-to-parent mentoring each other so that they can transition when they start in 9th grade or K through 12. Let's put it that way. Okay. And I saw that. I tried that. I've done that in my work. I've connected parents with parents, and they transported each other to tutoring centers here at the university. They had meals together, and they just kind of engaged in conversations about education when it came to their success of their students. And that's what I wanted to share.
Awesome. Thank you for that addition. Let's see if we have any more, any questions coming from the live.
Alicia, we do have a question from Basil Green. Can you see it?
No, I cannot.
Okay.
Oh, here it is. Okay, so Basil Green says parental engagement needs to be defined clearly, both on the administration side and on the parents and students side. What does engagement look like? What are expectations of both sides? With the majority of Latin and Black parents being lower income, where parents work multiple jobs, what are some of the access points parents can engage using technology without actually having to be in the facility? So I think Basil's asking about that technology divide in particular and those other disparities that we see in the Latinx community. Is there any panelist who wants to take on that question? Anyone?
I just have a question. I mean, as a parent, I do understand why she would pose that question, because there is a lot of families that do work, like she says, 2 or 3 jobs, or sometimes either one is working, the other one has to go stay with the kids or so forth. And then I do get a lot of parents that they're like, oh my God, I can't make it to the PTA, or I can't make it to the parent conference. I can't do this. I don't understand how this works. I don't know how to understand this. I do feel like if there was a way that we could create some simple platforms, just some simple platforms, because not all of our parents know a whole lot about technology. They don't know sometimes how to even get onto certain things, or sometimes they would have to ask their kids. And I admit, sometimes I'm one of them. So if there was a way that we could, like, for example, this platform here is great. This is why she was able to pose this question, because this way, she's listening to us from her comfort of her own home, especially with everything that's going on. If there was a way that we had to, I think parents get afraid, like if they're not here to support their kids, like going to parent conference and they feel bad, maybe then we find a way that they could do it. Now that we have virtually, maybe if there's a way that we could do other ways of doing stuff to make them part of it and not make them feel guilty for the fact that they can't be there and they really want to be there. Maybe there's a way that we could do something about it. I mean, parents sometimes think that just because, well, I'm at work and I can't be there and this and that, we don't look at them any bad or any worse. I mean, we do have to have like a definition for them, maybe a more simpler definition, so this way parents don't feel like there's, okay, I can't, be at that point, at that level. Maybe make it more simple for them and say, okay, no, we don't mean this. We mean this type of participation. We mean this, and we could help, or maybe, something like that.
Mm-hmm.
Just to add,
go ahead.
Just to add, I think a starting point for our conversation about engagement is all about relationships. It's important that any parent in our district can identify and say, hey, I have a relationship with the teacher or another staff member in the school building, because that's where it starts. Our parents, our Latino families, our Black families, all our families like when a staff member is real with them, when they're engaged. They want to be an active member of their child's education. It's just about us reaching out and forming that relationship with them, similar to what we do with our students in the classroom. If we don't have that relationship with your child in our classroom, we're not going to be able to get through to them to teach them. So that's a starting point. I would say when we talk about engagement, it's all about forming relationships, positive relationships. You can name that person in that building who you can reach out to for anything, similar as to the parent was mentioning.
Thank you. Let's see if we have any other questions.
More comments, but I know Dr. Coronado just joined us. Alicia.
Okay. Let's see.
Buenas noches. Good evening. Can you hear me?
Mm-hmm.
I apologize for the late arrival. We were having some technical issues. A few things on the Latino experience. Latino, Latina, Latinx people come from a very familiar culture. We're very personable. And sometimes our families are intimidated by the formal structure that has been foreign to them or has not always been accepting to them, right? So like Orlando said, it's important to reach out. It's important to have them engaged and make them feel welcome. To simplify things, we have, Latinos are very diverse, right? We have Latinos who've been here for 4, 5, 8, 10 generations. We have Latinos who are newcomers, right? And who are accustomed to the educational systems of their home countries, right? In places like Puerto Rico or Mexico, where parents could simply just show up and talk to the teachers. It's not the way it works here in the States, right? It's a little bit more complex. There's a particular hour to follow. So simply getting our families educated on that structure, right? And you're absolutely right. It's a two-way street. It starts at home as well, where student and parent become more communicative, and they share, hey, this is my English teacher, this is my Spanish teacher, this is my math teacher, and they communicate. Family communication is extremely important, right? And it spreads into the school system where our families can be more engaged and have an understanding of how the structure works, right? What does a principal do? What does a vice principal do? What does a counselor do, right? So it really is about transforming that arena where our Latino families can navigate it a lot easier, right? And it starts with forums like this. It starts with forums like this, and as there's a demographic shift, obviously, in our community, I think schools definitely are aware of that demographic shift to be more inclusive of Latino and African American families in our communities that make our schools so rich, right? So there's needs to be effective communication by both sides.
Mm-hmm.
All right, let's check back in and see if we have any questions. No? No more questions? All right, then. So I want to thank every single panelist today for sharing your perspective.
I'm sorry, Alicia. We do have one. I'm sorry, from Gail Sanders Connolly. She states, let me go back to it. How do we keep this initiative going? Parent-family involvement is much needed. Is the missing link. So anyone from the panel, with doing forums like this, how can we keep this initiative going? And more importantly, I would just ask Dr. Coronado, if he doesn't mind, and sorry, Alicia, is to talk about some of the some next steps for us, because we typically have these forums, but we never talk about, so what are those real next steps that we can commit ourselves to with superintendent here as well. So I just expanded on from what I believe Gail Connolly, Sanders Connolly was talking about.
So, you know, we often talk about empowerment, and it's a word that's tossed around, you know, and what does it really mean? How do we see empowerment in action? And what Dr. Sanders is talking about, we've had conversations about what this means and what it translates when we're talking about the African American, the Latino experience in the education system. And it's about building that capacity to build family capital that builds onto community capital, and it extends itself to building social capital. And what I mean by this is Latino families have been talking about educating their young kids for over 100 years in this country. It's nothing new to us. We've been striving for to close that education gap for a long time, and sometimes you just have to roll up your sleeves and get in there, right? And we need to learn how to communicate with our families that are becoming more and more important in our districts, right? So I implemented a program in Michigan for several years, Éxito Educativo, where we took families for a 6-week program and teaching them the importance of education and the steps, all right, on how to graduate their son or daughter from high school, and then get them to choose institution of higher learning that was acceptable to their student, you know, that spoke to their students' educational dreams, and then getting them enrolled, right? And it was a total bilingual program taught in English and Spanish that just brought families along. You know, for folks on this panel, some of these are very basic information, right? Financial aid, FAFSA. Unfortunately, to many of our families, these are topics that are not always of elaborate knowledge, right? So it is, and it's okay. You know, I'm a first generation college educated person, and I had to learn the hard way, right? And fortunately, I had very good mentors along the way, Latinos, Chicanos, white, African American, that showed me the ropes, right? And sometimes our students are not exposed to all that, right? So launching programs in the community, really community engaged scholarship, that brings our family along here to get to the next level, right? And what attaining an education means to our families, right? It really means jumping, you know, to the next social economic level, right? Which means building that social and community capital, right? And you know, I think we find ourselves at a crossroads with the changing demographics, and we really need to implement a different approach, right, that brings in our families, and the approach of 20, 30 years ago necessarily isn't working for this demographic shift, right? So I'm all ears, and I apologize again for being late, but these are conversations that we can continue having, and that our families know that we're not here just for one night, that we're here for the long run, that we want to walk with them through this process, and we want to see their son or daughter, their student, getting into the next arena of education.
Thank you. Do we have any other final words or any other questions? Travis?
Alicia, thank you. One thing that I kept reading in the comment section was that parents want to see these things happening in the schools. And there were some great ideas of international dinners and all those things. And I think one other idea that can be thrown out there is that parents and educating the teachers in this sense. There's so many teachers that we care for the kids and we want to do the best that we can, but we also don't know all the different cultures that are in our building and in our classrooms. And having parents be the educators and share those ideas that we as teachers can also better understand where you're coming from. And it goes back to all of those great conversations of building those relationships and having those connections with the families, that we need to be able to bridge that together, because there are so many cultures in our community, and they're so amazing that we all can't know every single thing until we want to learn about them and be open to that learning. So I really think that having parents coming in and teaching about the culture, not just to the kids, but to the adults, and understanding and having that openness to really learn about those different cultures.
Mm-hmm. Thank you so much, Travis. That is an excellent point. And the last person I'm going to give it to is Joyce, who's going to read a statement on behalf of Limcia because she was having connection problems.
She added actually a public comment about vulnerability and just the stresses at home. She wanted to pretty much, since her connection was lost, she pretty much wanted to add just bringing awareness to mental health of the students, and in her experience as a suicide survivor, that the stress of school piling on top of responsibilities at home can become a huge weight to bear on her shoulders, and that, on students' shoulders essentially, and that this can cause students to mentally and emotionally spiral. That it's important that we show students that it's okay to be vulnerable, and that as Limcia is a member of the Latinx community, Latinx communities are often labeled and expected to be strong, hardworking, and valiant, but we don't give ourselves time to feel those emotions. So that it's okay to not be okay, and that it's something schools, both schools and parents need to incorporate in their day-to-day lives. So I think it kind of ties back to sometimes just having workshops, having the space, teniendo el espacio. I'm going to say this en español para que me entiendan. I'm going to kind of switch back and forth a little bit, but just teniendo el espacio, el lugar, el momento, un tiempo to work with your kid, kind of a workshop, parent-child workshop, right? Un evento no solo es solo compartir y comer, porque podemos hacer esto siempre. Nosotros los latinos nunca falta el plato de comida, we never miss out, but having an opportunity to learn and grow together, as a parent and child, like I like the idea of workshops, right? Que maybe una clase, cómo hacer PowerSchool, how to answer this, cómo se mira esto, what are credits, what are that? And not just at the beginning of the school year, no solo el comienzo de la escuela, pero otros eventos que ellos puedan aprender y compartir. It seems like, this is a community that wants to come together a little bit more. What events can we do about it? So on my end, como maestra de Latinos en Acción, yo sé que esto lo voy a traer a mi salón de clase. I'll bring it back to my classroom and I'll say, all right, what are we going to do with your parents? Los mismos padres de mis estudiantes, tráenmelo, let's go, ¿qué vamos a hacer, right? So just kind of bringing this energy back to my classroom is what I'm going to commit to tonight. So I'll pass it on to any panelists. Y era un honor poder hablar por Limcia y poder estar aquí con nuestra familia.
Right. That was amazing. Any other final words?
Gracias, Joyce. Es importante hablar en español con nuestras familias, especialmente para los que solamente hablan español. Deben saber que las escuelas son para ellos. That the schools are for them, regardless of whether they speak English or not. Si no hablan inglés, las escuelas siguen siendo de ustedes y son del pueblo. And the only reason we're here is because of our students and families. So gracias, Joyce, for bringing that to the attention.
Y yo quiero añadir, como dijo Juan, mi compañero aquí en la Universidad de Central Connecticut State University, que los estudios nacionales educativos dicen que los niños que tienen los padres que asisten a la escuela están envueltos, tienen buenas notas y son los que tienen muchas más las oportunidades en entrar a las universidades. Let me say that. The National Education Association says that parents who are engaged, okay, who attend PTAs, who at least ask their kids, how are you doing in school? How can I get help for you? Okay, find community resources and maintain good attendance in schools and good grades, are apt to apply for colleges and succeed. Keep those things in mind, because se puede. Nosotros los latinos podemos, si pensamos en que más allá de todos los logros que tenemos para nuestros hijos, la universidad tiene una entrada para ti. Así que gracias. Thank you so much for allowing us to be part of this panel.
Thank you. Anybody else? No? All right. If not, then I want to thank all of the panelists. Give yourselves a virtual round of applause for an amazing and informative panel. I am so happy to see this happening. I think a lot of the takeaways here really show the importance of relationship building, the importance of building with community members, parents, students coming together in collaboration, and recognizing that while the Latino community has so much in common, we are also diverse people with so many different cultures and backgrounds and practices, and really embracing all of that in this community. So thank you again, and I'm going to pass it back to Sanders.
I just thank each and every one of our panelists this evening. I'm always appreciative and in awe with what I'm learning from you all and my takeaways. To commit to working with our partners to continue these workshops, right? And the investment of supporting our parents, our teachers, and our principals to listen to the stories of their families. And Evelyn left off the call, and I had her boy, who now works at Walmart, and I see him every Saturday and Sunday. I go there to pick up stuff, but he's like, "That's you, Dr. Sanders?" Yes, it is me. And we have this conversation. But just to see that Caleb remembers that connection, even in Walmart, is what matters. And the power that as educators we have to help our kids persevere through adversities, which is a hard thing that people of color have on their shoulders, right? Every single day. But there's something about all of our kids that's worth that extra energy, because you might not see it today, you might not see it tomorrow, but you are going to see it for the long run, right? And while we are in this vicious cycle of the pandemic is going to be over. And we're still going to be left with some gems that are requiring something from us. And when we get to know who we are when we're in front of children, I think that's where the magic happens. And finding and harnessing those unique opportunities to rebuild hope in our schools for ourselves. Because when we lose hope, I don't know where we are. And so we just have to come around that concept, is that we will get through. We have for years and for centuries, but we have to harness the hope. We have to give our kids hope. We have to give our teachers hope that we can do this, because this is what many of us were actually built for. And I'm going to stop there because my passion just overflows, and Orlando makes me emotional with his story. So I'm going to give the last couple minute or two to Superintendent to close us out. But I thank you. I appreciate you. And Mrs. Rodriguez, I will definitely come to visit your class.
So, tough acts to follow. Closing words. Nope, this isn't the end, it's the beginning. And I agree, more of this, more discussion, but also more action, right? And I saw that in some of the comments. It can't just be the talk, we've got to do. I'd love to meet with you individually or collectively here so we can do some of that planning, right? Some of the strategies. And then keep this communication going. Keep this as an avenue for parents to give us feedback on are we hitting the mark or aren't we? What do we need to do differently going forward? I thank everyone. It's lovely to meet some of you. A lot of you I already know. Alicia, thank you so much. It makes me so proud that you're a graduate of New Britain and you represent well. And to our students here too, you guys you take the cake. You are amazing. So thank you everyone for joining, and I look forward to more discussion.